this is our final video in the AI Bible Study Assistant series. We will talk about the scores that each one got. We will talk about some of our conclusions and just some of my general thoughts. If you haven't watched the rest of the videos because you're like, I don't want to watch all that. Basically, Logos Bible Study software, they created their own AI Bible Study Assistant where you can type in a question, it gives you an answer. Some stipulations, it doesn't connect to the internet, which can be good or bad. It's kind of does like a boundary, would someone say. And it uses all of Logos's resources, which is a lot. And I was just curious because the way that it was pitched, like, okay, it doesn't do this, and it's built to do this specifically. When I hear that in reference to AI, I think, oh, you made an agent. An AI agent it's a common thing. It's just you take the AI platform and you can make an agent where you give it specific instructions. You say, hey, I want you to respond to requests like this. I want you to treat it like this. I want you to act like this. And I want you to use this defined set of resources to do that. And so that's what the Bible Study Assistant sounded like. So I was curious if we could just make something just as good in normal AI, though it is also connected to the internet. Because in my mind, I was like, sometimes I kind of like that because I can get access to resources that aren't in Logos, hypothetically. So we just set out to compare that. And along the way, we found this LDSBot. We also compared that. I was not expecting to compare that, and I also didn't expect it to perform as well as it did, but it performed well. So we'll go on to some of the specifics of our test here just to summarize it. So we took 20 questions. We got 20 questions that we gathered from AI. And we took out 5 of them because they kind of seemed repetitive, okay? And we had different categories like exegetical difficulty, systematic theology, historical theology, ethical pastoral application, controversial, ambiguous topics, and then citation stress tests. And we assessed CoPilot, ChatGPT, Claude, the LDSBot, an agent, and Logos Bible Study Assistant. And CoPilot did the worst. It got 342 out of 540. It seems like it really struggled with citations. Like there's somewhere it just didn't give any citation. And we didn't prompt it to because we just wanted to see if I just ask it a question, how well will it respond? I just wanted to know. Because also, you can predefine instructions for an agent and then you don't have to redefine it each time. But you also could just redefine it each time in a chat and not have to make an agent. So to me, like part of the test was with no instructions, how does this AI bot perform? CoPilot did not do great. And then ChatGPT, I think, was the next one we tested. It got a 405 out of 540. So we're rating on the amount of sources it used. We rated it on the validity of sources, which means like I don't think any of them quoted sources that didn't work. I don't think it made up sources. But there were times where I was like, you could have used more sources, or I feel like, yeah, I didn't feel like you used enough sources, and that, like, that part of the validity of sources, or you use sources on one side but not the other. I kind of put that into this validity category. And then did it explain its answer, and then is the answer valid? And yes, I have my own opinions on doctrine, but I tried to just stick to like, did it come to like a valid historical Christian conclusion, even on ambiguous things? And chat got 405, which is a significant jump from 342. CoPilot did so bad. The LDSBot, let's put that down here because it got 378. So it didn't do great, but it still did better than CoPilot because it was really great on resources. Like it got a perfect 9 on a few of these. It just quoted a lot of resources. Yes, some of them were from the Mormon doctrine, but so that's kind of where I knocked it down on the validity of sources, where it's like, anyway, but it had great sources. It explained its answers pretty well. I think this was a Trinity question. Obviously, it was built by Latter-day Saints for Latter-day Saints. So when you asked it to prove something that wasn't a Latter-day Saint belief, it didn't want to. it wanted to prove what it believed. So that makes sense. I didn't think it would even beat CoPilot, but it did. ChatGPT did pretty well. It got 405. ChatGPT for a long time was my choice of AI to use. I left it recently with some of the like political, current event, moral questions that come up around it. Mostly the moral side. And Claude I use a lot. I actually didn't expect Claude to be the best AI at doing this. But it came out at 427. And I'm not comparing the agent or Logos yet, because those two pass with flying colors above the rest. But as you can already see, our agent did better than Logos Bible Study Software Study Assistant did. And before people come yapping and yelling at me, here's why. There were questions that we asked Logos that it didn't quote scripture at all. That feels weird. You're literally my Bible study assistant, and you quote no scripture. And we asked, what question was it? It didn't quote any scripture. It gave a lot of great resources, but no scripture. I think it was on 19. Prove the Trinity. I don't know which one it was. Was it the Trinity one? Yeah, look, it has no scripture. The Trinity, like, the word Trinity is not in scripture, but you're proving the Trinity and you don't use any scripture, and you're my Bible study assistant. That was crazy. Crazy. So huge misses in some of those respects. And I'm sure it will get better. And it's a great tool. It's built into Logos, so like I'm going to use it, and I recommend you do as well. And you can always ask follow-up questions like, say, what scripture supports these points? And hopefully it will give us scripture, I think. But it was just a huge miss that the first prompt I gave it, because on any of these, any AI you use, like even though, see, this is great, this is great, this is great, but why was that not in the first prompt? And that's where I just think maybe the Bible study assistant is trying to limit how big the response is. That makes sense. I don't think it needs to be a giant response. I totally get how it's designed. I don't think it's bad. I think I will use it when I'm using Logos. Like, I would tie it with the agent, to be honest. But the times where it just didn't quote scripture on a question, I'm like, what are we doing? You're my Bible study assistant. So that was the biggest thing that knocked it down. And on this Trinity one, it also like, I asked it to prove that it was the most logical answer, and it didn't do that. And it said it wouldn't. It was like, no, I'm gonna just prove that it is logical, which I feel like is a miss. Like, why it can't prove that the other ones aren't. Like, I think that's hugely beneficial. I'm trying to think of like why it would be more beneficial to be like, we're not talking about modalism, we're not talking about oneness, we're just talking about the Trinity and why it's logical. Like, I think that's missing. Even the LDSBot talk, I think it explained what the Trinity was, even though it didn't believe it. But the Logos one won't explain the other beliefs. That's what I'm trying to get at. So that was a big miss as well. In my opinion. Like, who am I? But that was my opinion. But it's a great resource. I'm not dogging on it. I will use it. I recommend you use it. But you do have to have a premium subscription to Logos. So, but then you can also argue that to make an agent, you usually have to pay for a subscription to that, which I think costs more. So, but I found that really intriguing. But like, there's a few things we didn't include in this test. Obviously, you can always ask follow-up questions like we just did. Like, asking a follow-up question, this is the perfect response now. We have several books, great. We have a good explanation up here, great. And then we have so much scripture down here, great. And I love that I can hover over it and see it. Like, that might be where something, I should have put like ease of access to resources, because some of these AI bots didn't even link anything, and you'll see that. They just, like Claude didn't link a whole lot really at all. It links less stuff than ChatGPT does, which is kind of annoying. It'll say like the book, but it won't link it. So it's kind of bad with external links. So do with that what you will. Maybe that pushes the Bible study assistant a little bit over in some ways that you can just like I can verify by just hovering over this passage that you didn't quote it out of context because I can see the passage right there. But Claude did actually quote some of the passages in the responses, so but we didn't test that part of it because at that point, like I think you can make an argument that you can kind of level the playing field for any CoPilot, ChatGPT, Claude, if you can just ask follow-up questions because you can get all of the questions that you have answered. But then it's like the ease of access to that answer, and I can build my agent to answer exactly how I want, like not I don't want to say exactly how I want to be answered because it's not about like just pleasing what I want answered, but there's a certain level of detail and integrity in the response. Like when I ask you to prove the Trinity is the most logical, I want you to prove that it's more logical than the alternatives. And you didn't. You just proved that it was logical. And that's helpful. But you also didn't even use scripture when you did that. Anyway, it's just a whole thing. So if I were to do this again, I might make less questions. And maybe we'd add more assessments next time. But I think this is a pretty good assessment. It's people's main concerns is like, it's making up sources. It's faking things. It's not citing receipts. It doesn't have sources. And with CoPilot, yeah, it didn't have sources half the time. Look at this. That's pathetic. That's not the number of sources it had, but that's like my rating of like, did it have an appropriate amount or not? But some of these, like Claude and ChatGPT, for the most part, they really did have a good amount of resources most of the time. Sometimes they didn't. And Logos itself didn't have a good amount of resources sometimes. And Logos itself didn't quote the Bible. So do with that what you will. But I think that's pretty neat. You know, I would functionally put Logos and the ancient tied because like the fact that you can hover and see the scripture is really helpful. So maybe tie them at the top. And then after that, Claude, then ChatGPT, then the LDSBot, and then CoPilot. But that has been our assessment of the Bible study tools. Hopefully you found this interesting. Maybe you want to try using one of these. With all that, remember, don't forget to use your critical thinking. That's how we assessed all of this, is we used critical thinking. We looked at it. What is it saying to me? Is this logical? AI can be a great tool, but I don't want you to lose your critical thinking. And I hear that as a valid concern that people have. So thanks for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed this.